Hey guys, Lytane here, and in keeping with the Christmas theme, I'm going to be taking a look at a video game that is set in the North Pole, at a very particular toy shop that I think everybody knows, that has just been taken over by a dastardly villain. So there's only one secret agent that could possibly save the day, and that's right, y'all know what you're thinking, it's Pond. James Pond, the robotic fish. Fish? Wait, that can't be right. Guys, really? Fish? Why would it be a fish? On my show, I usually like to talk about games and movies in the order of their release. I talked about Sonic 1 long before I talked about Sonic 2, but this is going to be the exception because I have never played the original game in this series, which is probably for the best because I haven't heard anything but bad reviews about it. But just so everyone is caught up, the first game had James Pond, who is an obvious spoof on James Bond, who is a mutated anamorphic fish tasked by the British intelligence to stop the evil Dr. Maybe. He's releasing all the oil in an oil tanker to kill all the fish, but of course his plans are thwarted. Beaten by James Pond, Dr. Maybe retreats to the North Pole to consolidate his power and to take over Santa's workshop. He's going to use the powers of Santa to deliver evil toys, some of which are very dangerous, all around the world in order to rule it. He kidnaps and enslaves the workers, which, depending on which version you play, is either elves or penguins, but I think penguins are much cuter, so they're the ones that I'll be talking about. After hearing about this new threat, the British intelligence sends the only fish, that could possibly put a stop to him, James Pond. But there is a slight problem, which most of you probably noticed. He's a fish, and the North Pole is all ice and land. How's he gonna get around that one? So they build Pond a new robotic suit, of course, that enhances his strength and gives him new abilities, and best of all, lets him breathe on land. He has now become Robocod, an obvious play on Robocop, and the first person on his hit list is Dr. Maybe. But can he get past all of his minions and put a stop to his nefarious plans, or will James Pond be a fish out of water? So I'm going to be honest here, and I've only ever played the Mega Drive version of this game, so my entire review is going to be based on that. So if there were any fixes on like DS or the PlayStation release, then I'm sorry, I don't know about it, so yeah, my bad. So let's start with the control of James Pond. Now, seeing as how this is a platformer from the 90s era, the controls are fairly simple. You have a D-pad which lets James walk back and forth, but he's actually really slippery when you do control him, having a strange momentum when he starts up and then a strange momentum when he slows down, which takes a little bit of getting used to, but when you do, it sort of makes no sense at all, really, but you can get used to it over the course of the game. So even though the Genesis has 3 buttons, there are only 2 other controls to this character. He can jump, of course. It's a 90s platformer. Which 90s platformer doesn't have a jump thing? But his jump animation and jump arc is fairly good, it's fairly big, and it's also a little bit floaty, which makes mid-air alterations fairly easy. And of course, jumping on enemies kills them, which is his main attack. The last control and main gimmick of this game is that you can extend James's body. By pushing the button, it goes up and up and up and up and up and up all the way to the heavens. And the only thing that will stop it is if you get hit by an enemy, which causes you to collapse, or if you hit a roof, or if you just manage to hit the very, very tippy top of the screen. The purpose of this is to, if you do hit something that's above your head, Pond grabs onto it and then he can shimmy across. The reason why you would do this is if you have a trap at the bottom, then you can jump on top and shimmy across the trap, or if there's a platform in the middle of the air, you can grab onto the top, shimmy across and drop down onto the platform. So it does have quite a bit of versatility, and you will be using it a lot. This is such the main gimmick of the game that even the manual has this in spades. This is really unique manual, by the way, where it has James Pond, but then as it keeps going and going and going, it has his entire body length, which I think is really cool. And according to this thing, he is 5 feet 7 inches. That's like as tall as I am, actually. Wow, James Pond is as tall as me. Only when he stretches, though. This is a pretty cool manual for a game, by the way. It has, of course, James Pond on it, but it also has a little bit of the levels and what you're supposed to be doing in them, giving them flavor text and stuff like that, and little bits of story, even though there was no need for it. It also gives you, items and your controls and all that kind of stuff, and even some information about some of the bad guys. It's a really cool manual, and it's one of those ones that could also double as a poster. I've said this in the past and I'll say it again. We need more game manuals. We need to bring them back. But, yeah. James Pond's one. Because that is the main gimmick of the game, you can expect to be using it quite often to progress through the levels, avoiding traps and enemies. The levels themselves are all quite varied in look, but the majority of them play the same. You will have one of two goals in each section of the game. Find the exit or find all of the penguins and then get to the exit. They don't sound too hard, but in order to stand out a little, the exit isn't usually to the far right of the screen like in most games of the time. It is hidden somewhere in the level, and progressing right is usually a safe bet, but it isn't always the answer. The levels are also maze-like with many branching paths and corridors for you to travel through. Most will connect up as you take the different paths, but some will be dead ends and others will be secrets. Honestly, the level design is pretty interesting, even if the levels themselves are short. And short they are. Now, the game box itself says that there are over 40 levels in this game, and while that is true technically, it's also a little bit of false advertisement. So in this game, you start off in a hub world, which is actually pretty cool and unique for this time. When you're going through the hub world, there will be a set of doors open to you and some that are closed. The only way to progress is to go into the ones that are open. So you start off with two doors that are open, you can take your pick of either one, and when you get inside, that's when you start the actual level. Now, each world has between 2 and 6 levels inside of it, and each world varies. It could be 2, could be 4, could be 6. You don't know until you play, and there's no indication anywhere either. You just have to keep playing through these levels, and then as soon as you finish one of the levels, you go on to the next one, and it has a different palette or backdrop, or just starts you in a different location, and then you keep progressing until you finish that world. But this game doesn't offer as much freedom as you might think. Even though there are 2 doors to choose from, that's all the choice you get. You can either choose to do World 1 or World 2 first, and then you have to do the other one before you progress to the boss. After you finish the boss, then you get rewarded with another 2 doors that are open to you. So pretty much it's take your pick of 2 doors, beat a boss. Take your pick of 2 doors, beat a boss, until you finish the game. Also, I don't really know why they did a hub world either, because there's not really much going on here. There's a few collectibles hidden throughout it, and it does look nice, not saying that, but it's just a little bit bland and a little bit boring, and I would have preferred to have a few more levels or something like that instead of having this awkward level select in the game. Now let's talk about the style of this game. Now the sprites are fairly well done, and Pond has a fluid animation, though he is simple in the game. The enemies are also interesting to look at, with the majority of them based around toys, which is to be expected really, being Santa's workshop. They don't have nearly as much animation to them, which is a shame, and the fact that they are such generic toys leaves the art direction for them a little uninspired. The levels though are fairly simple for the most part, with few textures, when most of the levels looking similar with ground and walls repeated throughout the game. The backgrounds are also usually pretty bland and simple, with a repeating picture for the majority of the level, or sometimes nothing at all, which makes the levels lack depth and scope, and it also makes it a little bit less memorable. But something that I'll always remember is this creepy, smiling face. It used to creep me out so much as a kid, and I still think these things are going to eat my soul. On a lighter note though, on the bottom left of the screen has a fun way to show you how many lives and how much health you have. The green bars are your hits, and as you take damage, Pond looks more bashed up, which is really cool, and his fingers show you how many lives you have. As he only has 4 fingers, I don't think you can have more than 4 lives, to be honest. Now the difficulty curve of this game is all over the place. Because you are going through maze-like levels, you'll have to try and just guess and memorize each stage as it comes in order to get to the exit. And then to find all of the penguins as well is another challenge on top of that. And it's so easy to accidentally miss a little alcove or forget to stretch in a place so you don't find a secret area or even the way. And the enemies are just relentless, and a lot of them respawn as well. So you'll be constantly fighting off them as well as trying to figure out where you're supposed to go in the level. Jumping on these enemies does get rid of them, but I found with the floaty jump and the slippery walking controls, it was a little bit awkward to jump on top of these bad guys. Plus, quite a few of them have more than one hit point, so you have to jump on them multiple times, and it can get pretty frustrating, especially when you look, think, and you're sure that you've hit this guy, that you've jumped on top of him, only to find that you get hurt instead, which happens more often than it should. There's also a lot of leap of faiths in this game as well. So many times I've been stuck on a ledge or in an area that I have no idea where to go, and then I'll stretch up and either find nothing above me or something that I can't grab onto, and then I don't know where to go if I go back because this is the only place I can get to, and then I just have to take a leap of faith. And that's not good game design, because jumping off a platform and to the air and having absolutely no idea if this is the way or if this is going to be death is not good game design. And it happens so much in this game because you just don't know where you are, where you're going, due to these labyrinthian style levels. These confusing levels, the relentless bad guys, and very few health pickups throughout the level make it incredibly hard to get through, especially the first time you're playing it. But on the flip side, the bosses of this game are almost too easy, with most of them having very, very simple attack animations and attack arcs which you could easily memorize and then exploit. And so I don't know why they made the levels so much harder than the bosses, when the bosses should normally be the culmination of what you've learnt. But the final boss isn't actually Dr. Maybe, which is strange to me because he's plastered all the way through the booklet and on the box and everywhere. So he's not the last person that you fight. In fact, it's this weird snowman thing that he created. I'm not entirely sure why, but that boss is actually very satisfying. It's challenging and it's also fun, and after you've learned the patterns, then you can finally beat him. And even after you've learned the patterns, it's still not a very easy fight, unless of course you do some exploits, which I don't really know how to do, but I have seen a speedrun of this game, so I don't know. But other than that, I think the final boss is actually the most fun out of all of them. I just wish the rest of the bosses could have been that way. To start wrapping things up in this Christmas game, there are plenty of things to collect, while most of them are just points, which I find completely useless. Who cares about points? And they're only there for bragging rights, but some actually offer some useful abilities. These include lives, health, and invincibility, which are very important to a game like this. You could also get an umbrella to slow your falling down when you jump, and some wings to turn Pond into a flying fish, which is very useful and probably the best item of the game. But the final things that you can find are actually vehicles, which are all pretty sweet. A car lets you go fast, hop, and mow down the bad guys. A plane lets you fly and also hit people. And then there's a bathtub. Wait, one of these things is not like the other. The bathtub acts very similar to the plane as it can fly, so of course, you know, bathtubs can fly, why wouldn't it? And I have no idea why they would have two different items that do essentially the same thing. I don't know, but it's just a bit of fun when you find that bathtub. While you are more powerful in these vehicles, if an enemy hits you in the head, you fly out of the vehicle and lose it. Also, there are some strange items in the hub world which are actually there for cheaters like myself. Picking up these items in a specific order will unlock certain effects. So collecting the lips, ice cream, violin, earth, and snowman, you get unlimited lives. Seems random, doesn't it? But not really. When you take the first letter of each of the items, it spells lives. Lips, there's the L, ice cream is the I, and so forth. It's very clever, and there are actually a few cheats in this game, like a level select cheat, that are activated in the same way. In my opinion, James Pond 2 is not worth it. The levels just aren't well designed. The maze-like structure and no direction of anything in these levels can be a bit of a chore to get through. The fact that these levels don't even look visually appealing is also another thing. If they looked better, then yeah, I wouldn't mind spending as much time in these levels. The controls of James Pond are also just broken. The weird momentum and slipperiness of Pond is just really hard to get used to, but when you do get used to it, it feels like you're fighting the controls more so than just trying to play a game. I didn't even talk about the music in this review because most of it is pretty forgettable, to be honest. Some good things about it is the animation for James Pond is really well done. I do really love that cute little thing in the bottom left hand corner which shows you your health and your life. I like the hub world. It actually looks pretty interesting and cool, and I would spend quite a bit of time there because I wasn't very good at the game, so I would see the hub world quite often. And the fact that there's a few different mechanics and stuff like the plane and the car and things like that, it does have some interesting ideas. It just wasn't executed as well as it should have been, and I have super huge amounts of nostalgia for this game, but it just wasn't as fun as I thought it was when I went back to it, so I cannot recommend this one, guys. So tell me what you thought about James Pond 2. Did you ever play the first one? Do you even know what James Pond is? Because it's one of those games that I played so much as a kid because I owned it, but I never got anywhere because it was really hard and confusing. Not like most games where you just go to the right. This game has you going everywhere, and it was just like my young brain just couldn't understand that kind of stuff. So tell me what you thought about it and everything. I already said that, I'm just repeating myself. It's a 30-degree day and it's hot, so my brain's a little fried. And don't forget to cycle subscribe. Bye! Like a big boy, I'm gonna drink some milk. Just go through my stuff, and man, look. The Mega Drive software and the Master System just to get some games and stuff. And you can even join the Sega Club. I wonder if you can still join. Doesn't say. Ah, man. I think I'm gonna join. I wonder if you guys can see my sweat on camera. It's only a 30-degree day just before summer. 30 degrees. Welcome to Australian summers. Oh, gosh.